Welcome to Break the Silence, Build the Future, a podcast dedicated to amplifying the voices of survivors and advocates while shedding light on the pervasive issue of gender based violence. Join us on a journey where survivors find strength in sharing their stories and experts offer profound insight into this critical societal issue. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Break the Silence, Build the Future. In this episode, I will share with you my experience and the lessons I've learned when I attended United Nations 68th Annual Commission on the Status of Women. This commission was established in 1946. Just imagine that 77 years ago. And this year was the 68th time that the conference was held. And I walked in there and I was amazed and inspired by the sheer number of women, from state representatives to non-governmental agencies and civil societies. There were hundreds and hundreds of women, the largest gathering on the United Nations headquarters. I was just absolutely in awe for the week. The conference usually goes on for 2 weeks, but I went the first week where the most of the events take place. The 6 days I was there, from 8 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock in the evening, I was on the move, attending one event after another. I attended event that spoke about women who had a small amount of money donated to them, and they used that money to invest in other women who would start their own businesses, small businesses, and grow from there. One of those women that received a small amount of loan and used it to open a little shack where she sold tea and bread now owns 2 restaurants employing over 50 people. There are this group who are establishing schools, training, skill building for young women. So the girls have something else to look forward, a way to support themselves, and they are not marrying and getting into relationships just because they want to find somebody to support them. There was this event where the organizers were speaking to how technology, the way we see it today, the algorithm that drive those technological advancements are biased against women, are biased against poor, are biased against disabled. Those biases against women, against girls, is written into the algorithm. The person sitting there doing this and that doesn't really have to be prejudiced or stereotypical or violent towards you. It's the algorithm that allows them to do that. There was another event where the group were speaking to how technology introduces a new way of violence against women and girls. And almost always, the violence that starts in the virtual world moves to the real world. And we are behind the goalpost when it comes to understanding and setting rules and regulations that keeps women and girls safe on the virtual world. Also, women who found themselves in a violent relationships, technology limits their ability of getting out. The partner they're trying to leave might have devices that are monitoring their technology use, the emails they send, the texts they send. There might be technology embedded into their car where somebody could say, you went here and you went there. Imagine if you're driving where the car actually knows where you are now, where you have been, and where you're going to go. It actually tracks you. So all those events, and I encountered women who for those 2 weeks left their lives behind, left their jobs behind, their families behind, and they were in New York, in United Nations headquarters, with such determination that I have never seen. Such strength, such drive to speak for those women that cannot speak for themselves. And every woman that comes to that conference has a mission, has a goal, has a purpose. But collectively, everybody there has one goal together, single goal, which is advancing status of women. There was one event where they spoke about the cost of care, how women are putting out labor that's not paid and not recognized in being a caregiver to children, in giving care to elderly parents. Only do they not get paid, that labor is not acknowledged. And almost always, the person giving unpaid care is a woman. So they spoke to all that, and they have all these plans of how to advance the status of women, how to make sure women are not finding themselves in a compromising situations because she doesn't have a job, she doesn't have a livelihood, and she doesn't have a way to support herself and her children, and she's almost forced to stay in this relationship and sacrifice herself in the process. So I saw all those and I felt like I could literally fly. There was another event where the organizers were talking about a world where belonging to a union and getting equal pay for equal work with equal skills is going to be the story of the day. And if an organization, a company, institution doesn't follow that, there would be a union that stands there for you, that would fight for your right and getting you a collective agreement. All those things I encountered, and I saw the power of women to move the world in a positive way. And I can't even tell you when was the last time that I had experienced such joy, such connection, such community with other women. Some of those women have been coming to this conference, this commission meeting yearly, year after year, their entire life dedicated to advancing the status of women. How could I not be happy when I see such drive, such commitment, such determination to my well-being, to my daughter's well-being, to women that don't even know I exist, but at the same time fighting for my right, whether it's those women that are trying to offer education so girls in certain communities have way out rather than getting into a relationship just because that's the only way they could survive. A woman that are ready and willing and doing to open mobile clinics so the mother in one side of the world can get care when she has a child. How can I not be happy when I see a woman that says we need to do something about technology so women are protected both on the real world and in the virtual world? How can I not be happy when a woman that doesn't know me is saying we need to make sure women are safe in their communities, in their homes, in their places of worship, in their shopping places? Women need to be safe. How can I not be happy when a woman that doesn't even know me says we need to offer support and acknowledgement for those women that are caregivers and that are unpaid caregivers? How can I not be happy when there is a woman in somewhere else in the world that doesn't know me says we need to have access to justice, access to support system? On the other hand, listening the limitations, the challenges those women that are putting themselves out year after year, the challenges they face. And remember, this organization, this commission intent on giving women the right status, the rights as a human being, has been going on for 68 years. And the commission itself was established 77 years ago. So how do I not be happy, but at the same time feel disappointed, feel overwhelmed, feel saturated with so much weight resting on my shoulders by just being there and getting caught between the desire to fly because I am experiencing all this joy and sisterhood and connectiveness and the drive to all arrive at that one goal of advancing women's rights, women's status. Every event, every nonprofit organization, every civil society event that I attended shared 3 challenges that they face. Number 1, social limitations. So there were a group of women who spoke about they are trying to give girls skills, education, so they can depend on themselves and get into a relationship because they want to, not because they have to. But those groups are saying, communities those girls are in are telling them this is against the social norms. You can't do this. You are disrupting the way we have always done things. You are trying to impose your way of doing, not the way we did before. This is the way our grandparents and great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents have done things. So that is limitation that these groups face, and they spoke about it clearly and openly. Another limitation is the lack of political will. When politicians are not willing to make legislations. For example, 3 women were killed in Ontario 2015 by the same man, and that alarmed the community. And the government decided it would commission an inquest to look into what could have been done to save those women and what could be done so we don't face a similar tragedy. And when the report was published, remember this report was commissioned by the government, paid for by the government. But when the report was published with 84 recommendations, government refused to implement even the first recommendation, which is to declare intimate partner violence as epidemic. Government said no. It's not like it's contagious. It's not like COVID. You could walk into the room and the person had COVID and you contracted COVID. How could it be epidemic? I can't even begin to unpack that statement. I can't even begin to tell you what that statement does to women. For our political leaders to stand there and say, it's not contagious because somebody's being abused and they're in the same room with you, you don't catch it. Therefore, we will not label it epidemic. Just think about that. Sit with that for a minute and see how the lack of political will limits women's abilities, women's rights, women to be safe in their communities, in their workplaces, in their homes. Because everybody knows violence against women is both predictable and preventable. The government said it's not contagious, but it's killing people. Just March the 6th, a 64-year-old teacher in Toronto murdered by her 67-year-old husband. She's gone, and he's arrested and charged with murder. Just a few months ago, a woman was killed here in my city in Windsor by her husband. When my daughter was killed in May of 2023, she was the 4th victim in the city of Windsor for 2 years. Only 2 years, 4 women were killed. And not because they were doing something wrong, not because they were causing problems or running some illegal activities and that's how they were killed, or there was some kind of accident, car accident. No, they were killed in their homes by their partners, people that were supposed to protect them. If the person that was supposed to protect you kills you, If that's not epidemic, what is? Third one is economic. To do anything to advance status, to support a woman that's trying to get out of a violent relationship, to support a girl that needs to get an education so she could support herself, to support a young mother that has a baby so she could get a health care and get to a mobile clinic in her village, to buy books, to make sure technology is protecting women rather than exposing them to violence, making sure that women who are caregivers, their work, their time is compensated both financially and emotionally. You need money, you need capital. And if you do not have the money, and if you do not have the support of those that have the money, then how are you going to deal with it? I went one event every hour from Monday to Friday, from 8 o'clock in the morning until 6 o'clock in the evening. And all those events across the board, from the one that spoke about union issue, the one that spoke about girls that need to get an education, the one that spoke about violence against women, the one that spoke about how poverty limits women's options to be free and get themselves out of a violent relationship, to the one that talked about lack of water and resources for women in some parts of the world, and the one that spoke about women needs to get the legal protection they need to get out of a violent relationship across the globe. Each and every one were saying their effort to improve the status of women, to advance the status of women, was limited by social restrictions, lack of political will, and lack of economic backing from government or those that are financially capable to support. United Nations Secretary General, in his opening statement, said women are bearing the brunt of problems created by men. And he said, where we stand here, if what's going on continues, next generation, my daughters and my granddaughters, will have less right than we have now. If the challenge faced by women across the globe is iceberg, immersed in water, and you could only see top, we just scratched the surface of this heap called challenges faced by women. But just imagine if you know that we only scratched the surface, we only touched the tip of the iceberg, and we're told we're going backward. In a town hall with United Nations Secretary General, someone had asked him, how are we going to deal with this? If you say we're losing more rights than gaining, how are we going to deal with it? And his response to that was, power is not given, it's taken. And it's each and every one of your responsibility to take the power. And my call to action for you today is join me so we can take the power.